Nganga KTN.
Yes, Grace Nganga with that report that forms the basis of our discussion tonight on the proposed Public Order Amendment Bill 2025. And in studio, as I had promised, we are with Fanyamambo Kinuthia, who is a lawyer and analyst. Welcome to KTN Prime. Fanyamambo, how are you?
A very good evening. I'm very well. Thank you very much. I'm happy to be here.
Yes, good to have you. And also, we do have Stella Agara, governance and security expert. Good to have you on KTN Prime. Stella, how are you?
Thank you for having me, and I'm very well.
Good to hear. So, and Shadrach Wambui, who is an advocate of the High Court. Shadrach, good evening. How are you?
Good evening, Robinson, and good evening to the viewers and the listeners back at home. It's always a pleasure to be here. Asante.
Yes, good to have you all here. And before we get to engage on the Public Order Amendment Bill 2025, I want us to look at the proposed amendments. So we quickly run through before we get into that conversation tonight. Let's take a look at the proposed amendments by a Nairobi woman representative, that is Esther Passaris. We quickly run through them. The proposed amendments for that Public Order Amendment Bill 2025. What the bill proposes is clearly define public meetings and processions. That is something that the bill seeks to outline out there. Aside from that, introduce designated assembly and demonstration zones gazetted in consultation with county government. The CS, of course, for Interior to work with CS governments and come up with those zones, and also prohibit public gatherings within 100 meters of key institutions such as Parliament, courts, and protected area under the Protected Areas Act. Now, aside from that, we also have prescribed penalties for violations, not to criminalize protests, but to protect lives and infrastructure. Some of the proposals in the Amendment Bill, Public Order Amendment Bill 2025. And finally, persons found conducting public gatherings or protests within the restricted radius will be subject to a fine not exceeding 100,000 Kenyan shillings and 3 months imprisonment or both. Those are just some of the Public Order Amendment Bill 2025 proposals, and I want us to get into that conversation. And let me begin with you, Fanyamambo Kinuthia. When you heard about the proposals in this amendment bill, what went through your mind?
Thank you. The very first thing that went through my mind when I heard about these proposals is that I, Fanyamambo Kinuthia, I withdraw my vote from Esther Passaris. Esther Passaris, ile kura yangu nilikupea, I'm coming back for it. IBC, uniambia where my vote is, I want to unvote Esther Passaris. And I want all of us to unvote every other person who actually thinks that their mind would allow them to have a conversation around such a horrible bill. So I would like us to also now take it to the next step and unfollow these leaders wherever they are. And the next thing is we want, when the voting of this bill comes to Parliament, we want it to be made public. Because, again, we want to make sure that every member of Parliament who passes this bill does not see Parliament again, ever. Because Kenyans will vote you out. So you vote for it, but know there is a price to pay. So we have to make this very personal. Wewe kama mbunge ukipitisha, it is a personal war that you have opened with Kenyans. Kenyans will first unfollow you from all your social media platforms. They will unvote you if there was such a word. In fact, kama kungekuwa na njia ya kuendea vote yangu ningeenda nitoe kwa hiyo box. And then number 3, what we shall make sure is that you will never see Parliament again because we will not vote for you. That cannot be allowed to happen. But also, it is now the definition, because we have to define who a public enemy is. Anybody who supports this bill is a public enemy. Anybody who campaigns for it is a public enemy. Anybody who votes for this bill is a public enemy. Anybody who refuses to decampaign this bill is a public enemy. In the unfortunate event that it passes, anybody who will be seen celebrating because it has passed is a public enemy. And again, if it fails, anybody who we shall see who is sad and is not clapping because it has failed is a public enemy. So we have defined you, anybody who is surrounding themselves with this bill, as public enemies. I have to tell you something. The fact is this. This administration has made a huge mistake. And that's what I want to understand, us to understand with this bill. This bill has no problem. The problem we have, they want to kill Albert Ojwang and they don't want us to demonstrate. They want to sell our airport and they don't want us to demonstrate. They want to abduct young people and they don't want us to demonstrate. They want to wake up and privatize Mumias and Zoia and all the other places and they don't want us to demonstrate. They don't see their sins. They see us as mad. Sisi ni wenda wazimu tukienda kwa streets. They think our brains are not working. That's why we are on the streets. We are telling you, you are the problem. Do the right things. Do you think that we are so happy being on the streets every other day taking tear gas? No. We have other things we do. I'm a lawyer. He's an advocate. Every other person has a profession they do. We go to the streets because these people are doing horrible things.
Yes.
So stop thinking about regulating maandamano. Withdraw from Kenya those things that cause us to go to the streets. When you come and tell us Albert Ojwang was hitting himself or his head on a wall, like ni kama kuku on a wall, zuko kwa Homa Bay, he came all the way to hit his head on a wall here. These are the things that are making us go to the streets. So stop regulating how we go to the streets. Start regulating your bad manners. Stop doing horrible things as leaders. Those are the things that are making us go to the streets.
Yes.
In fact, if you stop passing stupid finance bills, we shall not go to the streets. So this administration should stop taking us for fools. We are not fools. All we are telling you is all those Kenyans you are seeing on the streets are intelligent Kenyans. They are not demonstrating because they are mannerless. They are demonstrating because the administration is mannerless. Stop doing bad manners. You will not need this bill.
Yeah. Stella, is this, a sign of state strength or, weakness in responding to dissent?
Let me start from my origin.
Yes.
In my mother tongue, we say, Jaricho Ringo Kaonginga Malawi.
Meaning?
That a sinner will be running around even when nobody is chasing them because they are very conscious of their sin.
Yes.
The second expression that you would want to use, if you choose not to use that one, is Jakwodo Wangetar. That when you're looking for the person in the room who has farted, just check the person whose face looks ashy. Because they become ashamed about the things that they have done in the room. They know everyone is smelling their filth, and therefore they start reacting by, first of all, becoming ashy. Probably people don't get ashy when they fart.
Yes.
But sometimes they become panicky. They start creating legislation that is going to interfere with the rights of people. Sometimes they start putting barbed wire around public spaces that are paid for by citizens. Those are still reactions of a farting government. What I'm saying is that these are signs of a government that has panicked and a government that is continuously seeing force that they had not anticipated from the citizens. It is also a sign of a government that does not understand that in the exercise of their duty as a government, they should not exceed certain limitations provided for in our constitution. And I know we'll have an opportunity to have this conversation, but I think one of the areas that I want to draw all their attention to is Article 24 of the Constitution, sub-Article 2, that now provides direction on what limitations they have, even as they're trying to limit a right. As they try to limit the right to assembly, picketing, possession, and try to regulate public order, one of the things they have forgotten is that all of these rights should not be limited in a way that derogates the original intention of providing this right. They seem to have, for example, created an assembly bill that assumes that the only assembly that citizens will do is protests. They seem to assume that the only thing they need to regulate is the thing that they're fighting with right now. You cannot create the law for the situation that you're dealing with now. You must consistently think full circle and ensure that you're legislating in a way that addresses the issues that surround the governance of an issue. This government has lost vision, they have lost focus, they have lost legitimacy to even begin addressing the needs of the citizens. And that's why they can create legislation that even suggests that they're going to block citizens from going to structures, infrastructure, buildings that they should be approaching when they need to present a petition. If you want to present a petition to the president of this nation, you either go to Harambee House or you head to State House. If you want to present a petition to a member of the National Assembly, you go to the National Assembly or to the House of the Senate. If you want to present a petition to the police, you go to Vigilance House. So you cannot legislate to decide that citizens cannot go to those places. As a matter of fact, most of those places that they're trying to regulate are public spaces. Kenyans, of course, have an understanding that there's a way they should behave around those buildings. That is why we don't wake up in the morning and decide, I'm going to walk into the National Assembly. You, of course, either work with the Speaker to get an invitation or your Member of Parliament to get an invitation. Be assuming that Kenyans are fools assuming that Kenyans are asleep and they don't understand what their rights is problematic. Number two, assuming that the makers of our constitution did not understand what they were trying to give to Kenyans when they created this law is very problematic. And for me, the CS Interior and the President and the entire government and the agents that are leading this particular bill are people who have not understood that they have limitations by law on what they can do to limit the rights of citizens of this country. The last thing I will say concerning this matter it has to do with Passaris. And I'm going to break all the rules. As a woman, we're not even supposed to be fighting each other. But for me, when foolishness presents itself, it doesn't matter whether it's in a female or a male, we have to address it. A friend's daughter watched the interview between Esther Passaris and Miguna, and I'm sure most of us know what that interview went like, where it turned into a fight. And the friend's daughter, who's Gen Z right now, told me and her mother that she's very disappointed in us. So when she first said it, we were thrown aback. And then she now suggested to us that we are out of our minds. After watching Passaris argue the way she did in that debate with Miguna, she is surprised that we proceeded to go and vote for her to even become a women rep. And I remember we first of all laughed, and then we came to terms with the problem that is us. Because at that time, majority of us were told to vote 6 and then we decided to let in a woman who refuses to use her brain, and she has the capacity to use it, because I've worked with this woman before to try and mobilize funds for the youth fund in Kenya. She is the one who actually opened the doors to the office of the CEO of Equity Bank at the time. She can think. At this point, she has refused to think because she's hoping that the people she's trying to bootlick will get favors from her. The news that Fanyamambo has shared on this platform is legitimate. One of the things she should know is that irrespective of who her sponsor is, even if it is her own mother, this seat is gone if she continues to work with the people who are trying to limit the rights of citizens of Kenya.
Shadrach, I've looked at you and you are, keenly listening to what Stella was saying. But, in light of the June 25th Gen Z protest anniversary, the protest that we had in the country, do you think that, these legal responses are proportional to the threats that are posed?
Well, let me begin by saying that, our Constitution has classified our rights. It has classified rights that the framers of the Constitution thought that these ones were beyond the reach of parliamentarians, that these ones you could not limit. If you have time and you interrogate Article 25, it will tell you a number of rights that you can't limit. Then again, the other rights that follow, including the right to demonstrate, to picket, and to assemble, is one of those rights that you can limit. But even when you think of limiting these other rights, while you have the power as members of parliament or members of the National Assembly, or be it even the Senate, that power that you have to limit these rights is also limited under Article 24. So that Article 24 will tell you that when we are thinking about limiting certain rights, we should not limit them to the extent that we, in other words, take away those rights. In fact, if you want to look at, the retired constitution, the retired constitution limited the Bill of Rights to an extent that it became now, it became an expression of rights that have been limited. Like if you want to look at the rights that were given under the retired constitution, they were so limited that you will not even look at, you will not even see the right that was given to you by the Constitution. In fact, at some point, there was a judge. He was called, I think he's Dugdale. He's the one that said that the Bill of Rights is as dead as a dodo. That is what he said. A judge, he said that, because you will not get the right that has been given or prescribed to you by the Constitution. So that is where we are. The challenge that we find ourselves quite often as Kenyans is that while at Article 10 we recognize we have, national values and principles of governance, one of them we prescribe and say we have rule of law as a value and principle of governance. So even our oppressors, the people who are so hell-bent at doing the wrong thing, they understand that we have a principle called the rule of law. So what they do, they rule by law. So that if they experience a certain challenge, instead of addressing the problem and finding solutions to it, they now resort to making a law that now goes against the very voice of the people that were voicing their concerns. So that is now what is called, not the rule of law, but now the rule by law. So they now create a situation as the one we are finding with the Honorable Esther Passaris. So she has created now a law meant to stifle dissent and, to stifle the right and fundamental freedom granted to us or prescribed under Article 37 of the Constitution. But again, this attempt is not unique. I mean, she's not the first one. Mm-hmm. Remember, we have the Public Order Act. The Public Order Act is a colonial relic. This is something that was passed in the year 1950. And something very telling, I was researching and I found out. It was passed on the 13th day of June, 1950. And it took effect immediately on that day, the 13th day of June, 1950.
Yes.
There is something about the month of June in this country. So that if there were the Gen Z's revolution or, some of these protests, they are happening in the month of June. So this particular act mm-hmm. was meant to ensure that the blacks do not have an opportunity of assembling and discussing about their problems. Kenyans, you do not have an opportunity of demonstrating or picketing. And we went ahead, just to shelve that law or parts of that law so that with the introduction of the current constitutional dispensation in the year 2010, we decided that you have the right, not in isolation of the others, but you can assemble, you can demonstrate, you can picket and present public petitions in public authorities. So when you hear a legislator say that they want to come up with designated areas, mm-hmm. They take us to, if it's Kamukunji grounds, so you will be demonstrating in Kamukunji grounds. So what happens now to your right to present a petition
Shadrach,
to a public authority?
Can a meaningful demonstration occur in a designated zone?
No, that is derogating the right that you have. You have given with the left and taken with the right. This is to mean that, you see, the right tells you that you can go and present a public petition to a public officer, their office. So if we've been told you can only demonstrate at Nakel grounds in Ngaiburunya ward in Ongatarongai. Mm-hmm. So if you can only go to Nakel grounds, then it means if I have a problem with the governor of probably of Kajiado, if I have a problem with the MP of Kajiado North constituency, if I have a problem with the president of this country, so it means my voice will have to be limited to a certain area, confined to a certain area. Mm-hmm. That in itself is taking away the intent of the framers of the Constitution. So really, let us just not make nonsense and try to make logic from illogical reasoning. I think we just need to come to terms with the definition of the Honorable Esther Passaris, mm-hmm. as Miguna did. She's a socialite bimbo. That is what it was said of her.
In quotes.
That is what was said of her.
In that clip, yes.
Yes. So when you look at her, yes. You look at some of these proposals, especially knowing the context upon which they are flowing from, mm-hmm. then you look at a legislator who is not keen on addressing the problem, but is keen on treating the symptoms, rather than just giving us a cure. If people are on the streets, why can't you just try and find out as a legislator, why are these people, losing concentration? Some of them are supposed to be in school, they are on the streets. Some of them are supposed to be working, they are on the streets. So what is the problem? Mm-hmm. Why would they go and, brave those live bullets, mm-hmm. those tear gas canisters? What is disturbing them? Are they even sick or unwell? Mm-hmm. If they are unwell, take them to the hospital. If they have a concern that they are raising with the authorities, address that concern. If you are a legislator, you are our bridge to the president. You should be talking to the president and telling the president, listen, these young people, or these women, or these old men have this issue. Can we look for a way of having a sit down or coming up with a solution to their problem, mm-hmm. as opposed to, going all together and taking away a right that has been granted under the Constitution? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Fanyamambo, yeah. Is this legitimate, response to protest, or is it one way of opening the door to authoritarian style of, governance?
First, I want to say this. They started by pretending to be very philanthropic. They started by pretending to mean very well for Kenyans. Mpaka wanasema, oh, we are trying to protect biashara. We are trying to protect. I've had one legislator there, a lady, telling us that, that we are trying to protect those small businesses that are being robbed and stolen from. Two things emerge from that line. Number one, the biggest thief from those small businesses is government itself. Kenya loses a lot more money in times of peace than when we have demonstrations. You wake up one day, eCitizen has lost 15 billion. You wake up one day, SHA has lost 104 billion. You wake up one day, illegal tenders at the port have cost us 100 billion. Kenya loses a lot more money when UDA is governing us in terms of peace than when we have riots happening in this country. We are not saying violent upheavals are good, but what we are saying is that this nation loses a lot more money when these people are governing us the horrible way they govern us. Wanataka kukue na amani watuibie kwa SHA, kukue na amani waibe pesa ya port, kukue na amani usikie eCitizen has lost 15 billion. So before you say you're protecting that business owner, can you first stop stealing from us? Then we shall know that you're protecting that business, because you're protecting that business owner so that they can make money. And then you send the KRA to take everything from them, and kanjo goons and all those kind of things. Now, then they pass a bill that you would say, oh, now let us see how they're protecting the business person, because they don't want riots to affect the business person. Guess what? They are thinking of putting a barbed wire around Parliament, 100 meters away from Parliament in any direction. They are thinking of putting barbed wire around State House, 100 meters from State House in any direction whenever there's a protest. You ask them, but you said you want to protect Kenya's businesses. That's when you realize Kenya's businesses is State House, Parliament, Harambee House, Vigilance House, where they are concerned. Sijasikia any protection in this bill for the trader in Nyamakema. I haven't heard. Why didn't they say that this protest will be held 100 meters away from every hustler? Bottom-up noise. Why have they not said that this protest will be held 100 meters away from any M-Pesa shop, from any computer shop? They are only saying 100 meters away from State House, 100 meters away from... And by the way, kama hii State House si yetu, mbona mnatumia pesa yetu kurenovate? Si mwende mrenovate na pesa yenyu. If State House is yours, renovate with your own money, and then regulate how you'll use it. But you can't come, use our money to renovate. By the way, State House is in a constant state of construction. Every day, ni manyundo tu huko. I don't know what's being built, but there's money being offered for the construction of State House every day. And then tunakuja tunaambua, your State House is protected, you cannot protest near it. Na ni pesa zetu zinatumua. So watumie pesa zao. I think what they need to do, if they are so keen on protecting themselves, waseme kila mtu pin location ya kwake. And they tell us this is personal property, this is the president's personal house, deputy president's personal house, 100 meters from there, we shall accept. But our public spaces, you are wasting our energy. Now, number two, Raila Amolo Odinga, for the first time, allow me to address you as a young person, and I have been sent by very many others. They have told me that, Baba, you have done so much to achieve the democratic space that Kenya has had this far. When you joined Ruto, Kenyans got angry, but others forgave you, like myself. But now they've told me to tell you that this is the measure. They are waiting to see how your 83 MPs in ODM will vote. Baba, you are about to destroy a legacy you have built for a very long time. So on behalf of the very many Kenyans who have sent me and who believe in what I say and who have believed in you over time, they've told me to tell you to go and tell all your 83 MPs not to vote for this bill. That way, you will have a saving grace on your name. So, Baba, we beseech you. You have more than 80 MPs who listen to you. Our good friend Sifuna, you're the Secretary General, whip ODM MPs to say no to this bill. Otherwise, if this bill passes and if ODM MPs pass it, people will never forgive Baba. Finally, this country is having demonstrations because kuna mtoto anaenda anajigongesha ukuta anakufa. This country is having demonstrations because somebody wants to take away our airport for 30 years. This country is having demonstrations because Kenyans wake up one day and you are told that there is a farm selling property in Dubai, and they have just managed to sell houses worth 100 million to a civil servant in Kenya. That is why Kenyans are on the streets. Take away the reason that takes us to the streets, and you will never need to have this conversation. Anything else you are doing will not help you. When we wake up and SHA is not working, and then you tell us that you want a bill that will make sure that you beat us up and you confine us as to small spaces and fine us 100,000 for refusing to demonstrate where you want us to demonstrate. What you are saying is that you want us to give you permission to do bad manners, and then you punish us for your bad manners. This is something that we are not going to allow as a country. And let me tell you, and this is the most final one, I've heard them say that SHA is working. And I usually tell them it's excellent, it's actually working. And the reason it's working is because all MPs have dropped their special cover, which we pay with our money, and they are now all on SHA. If SHA is working, we want to see every member of parliament drop hiyo yao. By the way, inalipangwa na pesa yetu. And I don't know why Kenyans are not getting infuriated about this. MPs have got a special cover. If they have a problem, they are covered to the tune of 10 million. Hawako kwa hii SHA yenyu. That's why SHA will never work. Sisi kama wa Kenya, mujue leo make declaration. Tunataka kitu moja. Either sisi wote tuingishwe kwa hiyo medical cover ya ma-MP. Sisi wote, hiyo ya 10 million. Ama wote watoke, iabandoniwe waingie kwa SHA. The country has to choose. This is a new conversation that this nation must have. That all of us as a country will either be onboarded kwa hiyo medical cover ya members of parliament because inalipwa na pesa yetu. Wasituambie inakatwa kwa mshahara. Hiyo mshahara inatoka wapi? Sisi tunalipa. So we all be onboarded on the medical cover that our members of parliament have, or they all be onboarded on to SHA na hiyo yao yabandoniwe. SHA will start working tomorrow morning.
Stella, fining the penalties for these in these proposed amendments include 100,000 shilling fine or 3 months imprisonment or both. And you're doing this to, people who are jobless. Is this one way of trying to scare them off that don't engage in protests?
Robin, actually, that fine is supposed to be inhibitive, number one. But I refuse to discuss the fine and the penalty when the law in itself is an illegality. I think Shadrach spent some time explaining why it's an illegality, because the moment the substantive law you're trying to create derogates the content and the core essential of why the right was given in the first place in the Bill of Rights, then that limitation may not necessarily be guaranteed. I know if Kenyans will present themselves to court to challenge this bill and it will not be passed. I agree with Fanyamambo that indeed anybody with senses in that National Assembly should not approve this law. So for me, let us start from the core, that this law as it is not trying to just provide guidance on how this right will be enjoyed. It's trying to limit this right, and it's trying to make it impossible for people to participate in protests, and also to instill fear if you cannot afford to pay those fines. The truth is, the people who are being targeted by this law, Gen Z, are able to raise these fines for the number of people you want them to raise them for, because they have mastered the art of crowdsourcing, they've mastered the art of financing around their issues. So they're capable of raising those fines, and maybe they'll be able to pay them. But why do you even bring yourself to the place of fining them for exercising a right that is guaranteed in the Constitution? Now, you talk about, for example, not approaching the National Assembly in a law. You talk about not approaching the State House. By the way, it is possible to actually protest up to a certain level close to State House. There's only a certain area that is designated. Once you get there, it is expected that if the citizens are not allowed to get into that space, the person they're looking for in that place should get out and come and meet them. Because he was not put in that place for it to be a security area to guard him. It's supposed to be a space for him to function in. Your boss did not give you an office so that you can use it to hide. It is a space that you're supposed to be using to work for him. But if the clients need to see you in the field, you leave and go to where? The field. The president's field is the place where the protected zone of State House is. When citizens want to talk to him, whether he needs to leave State House and get all the way to Uhuru Park or wherever it is, they should let it happen. There are certain actions that have been taken in the name of public order that generally were allowed under the previous constitution, as Shadrach was explaining, but are an illegality under our new and progressive constitution. Robin, in this studio, I have been on record, and I'm going to repeat myself again. These laws as they are, the suggestions, the bills as they are currently suggested, are the reason why I keep telling Kenyan citizens, and I'm speaking to Kenyan citizens again, do not allow any conversation about amending the constitution under this government. We have seen where their minds are about this constitution. We knew where they stood when we elected them, and we made a huge mistake. And one of the things you have to understand is that they may not necessarily be fighting the provisions of the constitution as they are. They are fighting the spirit of this constitution. The spirit of this constitution required that if you are given the right to assembly, you can assemble anywhere and not be picked up for sitting on a bench at city center and sitting with people and organizing your bunge. The spirit of this constitution was to allow that if you choose to picket, you will be able to move in any spaces as long as you notify the police that this is the route we are going to be using. Why do the police come to the protests? They're supposed to come to the protests, number one, to ensure that you engage in an orderly manner, and that you stick to the routes that you had suggested. Number two is to ensure that if any of you becomes excited about what is happening and you decide to break into someone's M-Pesa shop, allow me to talk about small businesses because it's important that we keep this conversation closer to the people. Yes. If you decide to break into one of those places, they stop you before it happens. If you insist and there's a crowd of you, they have their vehicles to put you in. Not to pick innocent protesters and start beating them up. Not to lob tear gas to citizens who are actually walking on the route they had indicated to you they are going to be using. If you create laws about petitioning, one of the things you must understand is that petitions only make sense when contact happens between the right holder and the duty bearer. The moment you start limiting the access of the right holder to the duty bearer by, first of all, on that day, all the MPs disappearing to go and hide in hotels or wherever it is, and then having a National Assembly that is empty and has razor wire all around it, you're basically saying, we are allowing you to protest, and please go there and make as much noise as you need, as long as you do not disturb us in what Fanyamambo is calling our eating zone.
Yes.
Do not cause disturbances here. Robin, as a matter of fact, protests all over the world are supposed to be disturbances. The reason why people engage in protests and picketing and petitioning is because normally there's a situation around the governance, the jurisdiction that they're operating in that does not respond to their needs. And because either they're an inferior voice, they're few and they need to be heard, or they're a majority voice that is being ignored, like is the state in Kenya, you now engage in protests to demonstrate that we are in numbers and we're demanding this. So if your president does not hear it in the form of your representative speaking in the National Assembly, then your presence on the streets should actually be communicating that to them. So protests indeed are in nature supposed to disrupt business. Protests are supposed to slow down traffic. Because why do you carry placards? Are you speaking to yourselves? You're sending a message to somebody. And so if traffic cannot stop to see, oh, the women are saying that we need to end femicide, then nobody will know why you're on the streets. If you set a protest, and I'm glad he mentioned a place that I've never been to. If you set a protest in that kind of a place, how will we know that the women are gathered in that place to protest? You bring your business to the center of the city. In Washington, D.C., we have seen protesters setting tents, not coming with placards, setting tents and sleeping outside the White House as they were protesting. Why? Because protests are not just about marching. Sometimes they are sit-ins. Sometimes it is people deciding that we are going to arrive at Uhuru Park, we are going to arrive, assuming we go to Rongai, or we are going to arrive at Nyayo Stadium and sit there and never leave and never eat again until the government decides to address our matter. Now, we may not necessarily take that direction now in Kenya because we know the rogues that we have in government will allow every single Kenyan in Nyayo Stadium to die before they respond to it. But sensible governments, the moment they hear that you have gone to a hunger strike, like the one that Besigye went on as soon as he was arrested, yes, they will actually respond to the issues that you're dealing with. We started this conversation by saying this government had the option of listening to citizens and addressing the issues that the citizens are talking about. I have steered clear of those issues because I realize we are, in Swahili they say, nachezea mbuzi guitar, we are playing music to a goat, and the goat does not have rhythm or does not even understand music. And so they should have chosen to listen to those issues and address them. And it is their job to address those issues.
They only hear one issue. One term.
One term. That is the only one they hear.
That's the one they respond to.
That's the one they respond to.
Yes.
Number two is that they also had the option of saying, you know what, we are not able to do this. Can we take time to explain to the citizens why we can't give you this for now? For example, Mr. President should explain to us why is he insisting on some of his projects when citizens are telling him they don't want them. Has he at any point said, come, let us reason together so that we agree that if you really don't want this thing, I stop wasting your money on SHA, I stop wasting your money on affordable housing, and I look at other things. There are court rulings that are being ignored by individuals in this government. Unfortunately, it's a trend that has come from previous governments, and some people have now sanctified themselves to vie for presidency, yet they were also part of the pool who are ignoring the rule of law. Kenyans who have any sense left, any Kenyan who respects themselves, should ensure that anybody who has ever ignored a court order, anybody who has ever ignored a court summon, should never be allowed near power. And again, Robin, any human being who voted against our constitution, we can now say with confidence that they do not have the capacity to be given custody over this constitution. And so as we're choosing our next president, let us not repeat the mistake we made of electing a government that is made of individuals, especially at the apex, individuals who actually were resistant to the new changes that were coming with the Constitution of Kenya 2010, including that Bill of Rights that gives us the rights that we're supposed to be enjoying. Let us not even allow any conversation about changing this constitution come, because, thank God, we have a constitution that allows Kenyans to operate the way they're operating now. Had it been that Kenya had a constitution like the one that Uganda has right now, I kid you not, with the person in office, we would never be able to breathe. Passaris is creating legislation that allows the Minister for Interior to determine where people will protest. That office has been occupied by many problematic people. And today, if you say the Minister for Interior today is the one who's going to decide where we'll protest, I kid you not, we are going to be told to go and protest so probably somewhere in
that is what I was coming up to next, and I want the input of Shadrach on this. If the CS for Interior is the one who's going to decide where people are going to protest, will he not make it political? I mean, he's going, if you want protests and you are from the other side of the divide, he's basically going to throw you to a very far place that your protests will not even have an impact. Again, while speaking about that, if you put these measures, if they put in place 100-meter barrier, 100-meter belt, what happens when 200,000 youth show up?
Well, Robin, I've been reflecting, and then for some reason I have imagined that, this proposal that Esther Passaris has brought on board, I think she's very intelligent. She's very intelligent. If you want to look at, our current cabinet secretary in charge of public service is the Honorable Geoffrey Ruku.
Yes.
Yes. Geoffrey Ruku, at some point, last year, I think sometime before the 25th June protest of the year 2024, he came up with a similar proposal.
It was the Assembly and I can't remember the second
yes,
name.
Yes, it was a similar proposal meant to limit the right to picket,
it was Assembly and
assemble.
Demonstration.
Yes,
Assembly and Demonstration.
Yes, it was a bill essentially, focused at limiting the right as provided under Article 37, which is to assemble, to demonstrate, and to picket, and to present petitions to public authorities. So from that proposal, from that initiative that he came up with, of course, he did not see the light of day. Later on, he was elevated from a member of parliament to a cabinet secretary now in charge of public service. I think Esther Passaris has equally sat down, reasoned, and looked at the environment in which she's living in, and decided if, this is math, if Ruku, the Honorable Ruku, came up with this bill, he was removed from the position of a cabinet secretary, from a member of parliament, and elevated to the position of a cabinet secretary. I'm equally a member of parliament, member of the National Assembly. So I will come up with the same stupid proposals. Then, if they don't succeed, well and good. If they succeed, well and good. But ultimately, I know at some point an opportunity will avail itself. I will also be elevated from a women representative to probably a cabinet secretary in charge of gender. I think that is the math. This Kenya, our politicians do not thrive from some reason. they thrive from, some of these unreasonable acts. They want to lie on the road. They want to do some of these gymnastics so that they can be remembered.
Now,
so
while we're still at it,
yes.
She says that she distinguishes her bill from the Assembly and Demonstration Bill 2024, saying it's only regulating where it happens and not how protesters behave.
And that is the problem.
That there is the problem.
That is the problem.
Yes.
You see, you cannot tell us where it happens because the Constitution has opened a door and told us you can do it anywhere. This right is actually in 3 layers. The first one is your right to assemble. We can come here and assemble and discuss our matters, like Bunge la Wananchi. You go to Rongai, you go to here at Jivanji, people have assembled to discuss their rights. My client, Nuru Okanga, is in the habit of discussing matters, public interest and politics of this country at Jacaranda grounds. That is his right to assemble. The second limb of this right is the right to demonstrate. Demonstrating will mean walking from this road, from Mombasa Road, all the way to town, just to send a certain message. Equally, there is the right to picket. Picket is what you've been seeing doctors do at the Ministry of Health, Afia House. They go out there, they sleep at the entrance of that government office. And then lastly, we have the question about presenting public petitions. Because sometimes over and above probably demonstrating, you might have some write-up that you want to express certain things. So this write-up is supposed to be handed over to a government authority who is working, having a designated office, probably at Afia House, at Vigilance House, whichever government building it is. So when you tell us that you are going to come up with a law to prescribe certain areas where we are going to be picketing or assembling, you see, you have taken away that right. So it means you've made the proposal in the Constitution a hollow promise which can never be enjoyed by the Kenyan citizens. So really, it is important that some of these legislators, and this is the problem, I've had my sister here and my brother look at the problem as being the president. Sometimes I think that we go too very quickly. We have so many problems with MCAs, we have problems with the MPs, we have problems with the governors, the women representatives, and we have a problem at the presidency. So even before we go there, we should deal with all these small problems, because some of these things, we have focused so much on the presidency, and some of these clueless leaders that we have in this country are going to find their way back into these offices. I have analyzed the situation and I have come to this conclusion, that the president should not really shoulder the whole blame for the problems that we undergo or we are facing as a country. The president has succeeded thus far in doing what he has managed to do, whether it has become popular or unpopular, because of the failure in the checks and balances that have been put in our constitution. We gave the members of parliament some certain responsibility to check this president. But remember, the president is succeeding at what he's doing with, the housing levy, some of these taxes that are being taxed here and there, because why is the reason? It's because our members of parliament have decided to be passing everything that is pleasing in the eyes and in the mind of the president. So really, the president now becomes a beneficiary of our legislatures having failed or having become lethargical at what we instructed them to do. Number two, we have an Inspector General of Police. This Inspector General of Police is enjoying certain autonomy in our constitution. In fact, he enjoys a security of tenure, just like our judges, just like the Director of Public Prosecutions. This security of tenure that he has was thought out by our founding fathers or people who came up with this constitution to be a security, so that when he is coming up with a solution, or rather he's giving certain directives, he's not giving these directives to please the president. He's giving these directives independently, knowing that these directives are to the best interest of the people of this country. But what does he do? He is cornered even with the theory of the matters as they are. Looking at matters theoretically speaking. He enjoys certain autonomies, but because of the situation that has been created, either in his mind or with politics, he's cornered, he cannot act independently. So we end up now having a police service that has returned back to the police force that we had previously. So we have cases of Ojwang, we have cases, so many cases. I mean, some of us were motivated to becoming who we are because of the police brutality that we experienced where we grew up from. So this problem has been there, and the reason why we refuse to get out of these issues is because we have a hangover. We have hangover of the imperial presidency that we used to have before this constitution came in force. So if we really want to have a change in this country, it is not a question about who becomes the president. It is a question about who becomes the MCA. Because if we have a good MCA, then our governors will not be stealing from us. Our governors are being given billions of money, but you know, they just live flashy lifestyles. Flashy lifestyles. Secondly, we have MPs. We have MPs that are clueless. MPs that have lost hope in the leadership. We have one who speaks in Kajiado North constituency. He is very hopeless because he comes out and says, you know, I have severed my ties with the president. Now, because I have exited the, I am no longer a friend to the president, you people of Kajiado North constituency will never enjoy development. So he is just retired, you know, his ambitions of leading us to prosperity as a constituency. So what Robinson this does is, yes, you end up now, because you have lost hope in leadership, you end up now transferring that hopelessness to the people that you are leading. Mm-hmm. I mean, you do not have to become friends with the president for us to get development. You do not necessarily have to. Let me just close by saying,
Shadrach,
you do not have,
before you close,
yes,
I have 3 minutes before we close the show.
Yes.
So your closing remarks with that.
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm saying this in closing. You do not necessarily have to have a cordial relationship with the president for you to bring development to your people. I think there are so many ways in which you can utilize, ways that have been created in our constitution to ensure that you bring to account people who have the responsibility of bringing development to you. But you cannot be leading people and telling them that if I'm not in bed with the president, then you're not going to get fruits of development. You're not Rachel Ruto. Rachel Ruto is the one that is supposed to have a good working relationship, a good relationship with the president because they are wife and husband. But as far as we are concerned, what you need to do is you need to work for the people. If the president has been elected by the people, you are equally elected by the people. Serve the people, use any means necessary, including using your powers as a member of parliament to summon the relevant bodies to come and answer to questions that you have. But you cannot be going around the whole country telling people that now we need to endure for the next 5 years. The question I pose is this: what happens if Dr. William Samoei Ruto is re-elected and these same hopeless leaders in the names of MPs are also re-elected? Will these constituent members, probably from where I come from, the Kajiado North constituency, will we ever get development if we have whatever is happening now replicating itself in the year 2027? So people need to think outside the box. We need to know that there are so many ways of killing a rat, including burning the house. Thank you.
Stella, your closing comments, please make it brief.
I'm going to do my best, Robin, but you also have to give us the right of reply because Shadrach has accused us of something that I don't think we are guilty of.
Yes.
We have a very clear understanding that that there are other layers of leadership that are supposed to be holding the president accountable and the executive accountable and ensuring that they deliver. We know that there are issues with them, but the beauty of it is that around those spaces, citizens have a way of managing them. You don't even need to know that the MCA from my ward in the village has actually been summoned by the citizens and asked questions. It happens in their barazas in the village. I think it's somewhere in Northeastern Province, one of the governors, I forget right now because of the pressure of time, who has now been impeached, and he has been very rude, and of course he's going to meet the Senate very soon, and he shall be dealt with. So we have a way of recalling our governors. Where we have a problem and where, again, substantive laws were used to limit the citizens' ability to regulate the president and the executive is now where our parliament is failing. that Parliament has been co-opted and therefore it is not capable of doing what Shadrach expects it to be doing. Parliament as constituted is not capable of doing that. I'm actually doing my best.
Yes,
it's not capable of carrying out their task.
I also need Kiduthia to give his...
Which is why we are going back to the person who we know has the capacity to organize rigging for an election. And therefore, we have to, as a people, if our parliament has failed, we have to be the ones demanding accountability from them. The other thing that I will say, and it's the last thing I'm saying, picketing is people gathering outside a venue, an office, a state office, whatever it is, and denying people entry so that they can know that there's a matter that is happening. So you cannot say that you will block the spaces where people are supposed to be gathering. If we only understood what assembly, picketing, petitioning means, we would not even be tolerating the conversations about this law in the first place. Kenyans of sound mind do not support this law. Do not elect again any individual who does not support the Constitution of Kenya 2010. Number 3, do not vote for anybody who has been found to kill the child of a mother in Kenya. Do not allow anybody to be on the ballot paper, and even if they are there, do not vote for anybody who has demonstrated lack of integrity. Do not vote for anybody who has demonstrated that they disregard the rule of law and constitutionalism and have ignored court orders and subpoenas. Do not participate in voting for any individual who has proven that the life of a Kenyan does not matter.
Fanya mambo in a minute. Closing remarks.
Public participation. 290 constituencies, tunawangoja. Hii bill, the one thing you must do, give us public participation. You 290 MPs, nataka mukuje kwa constituencies zetu, mutuambie munaenda kupitisha. It's very simple. We will end that nonsense there. So Kenyans, brace yourself. The only thing I want us to demand for this particular bill is mbunge wenyu akuje kwa constituency yenyu na hiyo upuzi ya kuambia napitisha hiyo kitu. That's all we want. Public participation ifanywe, 290 MPs wakuje, wetu kwetu Dagoretti South tutakungojea mbunge ukuje, utuambie unataka kupitisha hiyo kitu, tutapitishia wapi. That's it.
Thank you very much, Fanyamabo. Of course, we would have liked to continue with this conversation, but we like to keep it short and sweet. Thank you very much, Fanyamabo Kinuthia, who is a lawyer and a political analyst, Stella Gara, who is a governance and security expert, as well as Shadrach Wambui, who is an advocate of the High Court, for coming and giving us your views on the regulating protest, as well as the Public Order Amendment Bill 2025, and you know what should be done and what should not be done. But that is where we wrap up KTN Prime. My name is Robinson Okenye. Have a good night.